The space extended like a black and infinite mantle, sprinkled with stars that blinked in the distance like watching eyes, indifferent to human life. Inside the ship Aegis, the silence was almost suffocating, interrupted only by the constant hum of the energy systems and by the occasional metallic crack of the hull, which creaked under the pressure of the outer vacuum. Ethan walked through the main corridor, feeling each step reverberate through the cold metal, the heart beating fast, as if sensing something beyond what his eyes could see. There was a tension in the air, almost palpable, and each member of the crew seemed to carry it on their shoulders in their gestures, in their gaze. He stopped before the door of the command bridge, observing the bluish light of the screens reflect on the security visor. Each panel displayed data of the surrounding space, motion sensors, communication records, three-dimensional maps of the stars and of the objects in orbit. But then something unexpected happened. A series of symbols appeared suddenly on the main communication screen, pulsing with a light of its own, almost alive. Ethan frowned, feeling a shiver run down the spine. "That is not human," murmured Rena, approaching him. The captain was pale, the grave expression reflecting the vibrant blue of the screen. "I have never seen anything like it in all my missions." Ethan breathed deeply, leaning to observe the symbols. Each line seemed to move as if it had consciousness, changing shape and intensity as he approached. The strange pattern pulsed and expanded, emitting an almost imperceptible vibration that reverberated not only in the electronic systems, but somehow inside their own minds. "They are trying to communicate with us." "Or to study us," said Ethan, the voice low, almost trembling. A shiver ran down his spine, and he felt the pressure of each second accumulating in his consciousness. "But I cannot decipher anything." "Maybe it is better not to try to understand," answered Rena, crossing the arms, the eyes fixed on the screen. "Sometimes the unknown is more dangerous than any direct attack." The communication captain, Harris, a man with more than 30 years of experience in space battles, approached, frowning. "If this is a trap, we could be entering territory from which we will not return," said he, with the voice firm but loaded with tension. "And make no mistake, there is no room for mistakes here," Ethan swallowed dry. Each decision now carried the weight of an entire life, not only his, but that of the entire crew. He observed the sequence of symbols for a few more seconds, trying to perceive some pattern, some reason, some intention. But the more he looked, the more it seemed that the signals studied them, as if the entire universe were watching, testing their reaction. The crew began to whisper nervously, each murmur reflecting doubt and apprehension. The corridor seemed narrower, darker, as if the ship itself were compressing its occupants against the gravity of fear. Ethan felt the first wave of true tension. They were about to face something greater than they could ever imagine. "We need to stay calm," said Rena, the voice firm, but with a note of warning. "But we also need to be prepared for anything." A pulsating light crossed the ship, reflecting in the eyes of each crew member as if the cosmos itself were sending a silent warning. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and fascination. Whatever was on the other side was not only an enemy, but something capable of changing their lives forever. Fragments of energy began to vibrate through the corridors, illuminating tense faces. "Each second from now on will count," said Harris. "We cannot make mistakes." Ethan felt the weight of the silence, as if the entire ship held its breath with him. "Then let us listen," said he, trying to infuse courage into his own voice, "and discover what this really means." The sound of low alerts began to fill the environment, the sensors emitting signals that indicated an unknown presence, perhaps watching them, perhaps testing them. Each crew member realized that that was a call to something greater than any previous mission. Rena clenched the fists, aware that the first great decision of humanity in that sector of space had begun. Each mind on board prepared itself for the uncertainty that approached. "They are alive in some way, or at least conscious," murmured Ethan, analyzing the irregular pulses that appeared on the panels. "And I feel that they are studying us, seeing how far we can go without making mistakes." The bluish lights danced through the corridor, reflecting the aura of tension and mystery that hovered over the ship. Ethan realized that nothing would be as before. Each second now could determine life or death. Fragments of data began to appear on the panels, displaying patterns that only the most attentive could perceive. "Something is watching us," said Harris. "And I think it is not only curiosity, it is a test." Each breath seemed to echo through the metal of the Aegis, reminding them that the universe could be at the same time beautiful and lethal. Ethan closed the eyes for an instant, feeling the responsibility crush his chest, preparing himself for what was to come, while the stars outside shone indifferent. The command corridor seemed a capsule of tension. Each panel, each button, each line of data seemed a potential threat, a riddle to be solved. Ethan felt that his body was tense, but the mind sharp. Each sensation was amplified, each decision weighing tons. "Rena," said he softly, almost to himself, "we need to plan our response, but without provoking. Each false step can be fatal." "I agree," answered the captain with the voice firm but low, "but we also need to be alert. Any movement of theirs can mean an immediate attack, or worse, a psychological test." Suddenly, the light of the screen flickered with greater intensity, as if something wanted to call attention. A fragment of electronic sound arose, an almost musical vibration, reverberating in the metallic corridors. It was not human, it was not mechanical, it was something organic. "What is that?" asked Ethan, the tension growing each second. "It seems that they are communicating in another way." "Maybe they are trying to provoke us," said Harris, analyzing each pulse of energy, each variation of frequency. "Or to measure us." Each second dragged on, loaded with tension and expectation. The silence was cutting, interrupted only by the hum of the systems and by the signals that seemed almost conscious. Ethan felt as if the entire ship were holding its breath with him. And the crew began to realize that that moment would define much more than the success of the mission. It would define the survival of all. "Prepare defensive systems," ordered Rena, "but without acting hastily. We need to understand before reacting." Fragments of light began to dance through the corridor, reflecting in the eyes of the crew and creating hypnotic patterns. Each detail seemed charged with meaning, but impossible to decipher quickly. Ethan felt the first true wave of dread and admiration at the same time. "We are being watched," said Harris, the voice deep. "And I have the feeling that they know more about us than ourselves." The weight of responsibility crushed Ethan, but he knew he could not hesitate. Each movement of the ship, each tactical decision, each word spoken could alter the destiny of the crew, of the mission, perhaps of the entire humanity. Meanwhile, the symbols continued to pulse, changing shape, rhythm, as if responding to the emotions and thoughts of the crew. Ethan realized that each one of them was being measured, tested, evaluated, and that the first battle had not even begun. "Let us discover what they want," said he, firm. "But carefully. Each step needs to be calculated." The silence that followed was absolute, loaded with expectation, fear, and adrenaline. The stars outside shone as if they knew nothing of what happened inside the Aegis. Ethan breathed deeply and prepared himself. They were about to enter something that would change everything. The space ahead of the Aegis seemed empty, but Ethan knew that this was an illusion. Each star, each fragment of light, could hide something that defied human comprehension. The sensors detected a massive structure approaching, too large to be a conventional ship. The main screen began to display forms that changed constantly, as if they were living organisms floating in the vacuum. "It is enormous," murmured Ethan, the voice almost a whisper. "It does not look like a fleet, it looks like an entire creature." Rena approached, the eyes fixed on the screen, while the analysis systems tried to decode impossible patterns. "And in the middle of this mess there is something smaller," said she. "It looks like an isolated ship. Maybe it is asking for help." Harris, the communication captain, analyzed the sensors with redoubled attention. "If this is a trap, this call for help may be the perfect bait." Before they could make any decision, the Aegis was hit by a surprise attack. Alarms went off, the floor vibrated under the feet of the crew, and fragments of metal flew through the corridor. Each impact seemed studied, as if each projectile knew exactly where it would cause the greatest psychological damage. "Shields! Everyone to stations!" shouted Rena, trying to maintain calm despite the chaos. Ethan ran to the command bridge, feeling each second as if it weighed tons. The attack was not random. It was intelligent, calculated, as if the very alien fleet anticipated each human movement. They were not only fighting, they were being tested, studied, and provoked. At the end of the first attack, the silence returned for a few moments, but the feeling of vulnerability remained. Metallic fragments still floated through the corridors, and each crew member knew that at any moment they could be hit again. "We need to understand the enemy," said Rena, breathing deeply. "Courage will not be enough. Each decision now must be precise." The stars outside shone indifferent, but for the crew of the Aegis, each point of light seemed a silent witness of the imminent danger. Ethan realized that each second of hesitation could cost lives. "Prepare pulse weapons," ordered Harris, analyzing the sensors. "If they attack again, we will not have warning." Fragments of alien energy began to pulse around the ship, emitting sounds that resembled music, but of an unknown type, almost hypnotic. "It is as if they provoke us," murmured Ethan, feeling the body shiver. "Each of our movements is being tested." Rena adjusted the controls, maintaining calm. "Then we will play intelligently. Each second counts. Each action can save our lives." The space around seemed to close, making the darkness denser, more threatening. Fragments of light reflected in the eyes of the crew, reminding them that each choice could mean the difference between life and death. Ethan realized that the true battle would not be only physical. It would be psychological. The enemy seemed capable of reading behavior patterns, anticipating responses, and perhaps even manipulating emotions. "They know that we are here," said Harris, the voice deep. "And I feel that they know more about us than ourselves." Meanwhile, the isolated ship in the middle of the alien fleet began to emit emergency signals, but in a fragmented way, almost confused. "It seems that someone or something wants to warn us," said Ethan, "but we need to be fast, or we will not have a second chance." Rena looked at the monitors and clenched the fists. "Then we will find out what they want, but we need to prepare for the worst." Fragments of alien light began to dance through the command corridor, reflecting hypnotic patterns. Each detail seemed to carry meaning, but it was impossible to decipher quickly. Ethan felt a wave of dread mixed with fascination. Something inside him knew that that moment would define everything. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," ordered Rena. "We cannot underestimate their intelligence." The ship responded with calculated slowness, each system being tested to the limit. Alarms sounded repeatedly, each one a reminder that they were in hostile territory, surrounded and under constant surveillance. "We are being studied," said Harris. "Each action, each decision, each hesitation, everything is being observed." Ethan closed the eyes for a moment, trying to absorb the situation. Each second was crucial. Each mistake could be fatal. "Then we will play intelligently," murmured he. "Each step needs to be calculated. Each decision needs to save lives." Fragments of alien energy began to pulse in patterns that almost seemed to respond to thoughts. "They are trying to understand us." "Or to manipulate us," said Rena, observing each change of frequency with attention. The first contact had ended, but the silence that followed was even more threatening. Each member of the crew felt the weight of the unknown, the cold of space, and the sensation that they were being watched in a way that transcended any previous human experience. "We are alive, but for how long?" murmured Ethan while he looked at the distant stars. "And the closer we stay, the more dangerous they will become." Fragments of metal floated in the corridor, reminding them that the real battle was only beginning. And in the depths of the mind of each crew member, there was the certainty that that mission would forever change the destiny of humanity. The silence inside the Aegis after the first contact was heavy, almost suffocating. Each panel shone with information that seemed almost alive, and each alien symbol that still blinked on the monitors carried a meaning that no one could completely decipher. Ethan kept himself close to the command bridge, watching each movement of the crew, aware that, at any moment, a mistake could cost everyone's life. "We need to divide functions," said Rena, the voice firm. "Harris, continue monitoring the signals. Ethan, I want you to coordinate the evasive maneuvers and supervise the weapon systems. Each decision needs to be quick and precise." Harris nodded, the fingers dancing over the communication panel while deciphering patterns and attempts of contact. "It's clear that they don't just want to destroy us," he said. "They are testing us, measuring our reactions, maybe even trying to understand how we think." "If that's it, we are at disadvantage," murmured Ethan, tightening the fists. We can't predict their actions. Each movement of ours seems to be anticipated. While they spoke, a red alert sounded on the bridge. A fragment of alien energy had penetrated the external shields, hitting the side of the ship with strength enough to shake the entire hull. The crew grabbed onto the supports, feeling the impact reverberate. "Shields at maximum power," ordered Rena. "We can't let them find vulnerabilities." Fragments of alien light danced around the ship, changing frequency and shape. It seemed almost intentional, as if the fleet itself were provoking them, testing not only their defenses, but also their capacity to keep calm under pressure. "Ethan, we need to think fast," said Rena, the eyes fixed on the monitors. "If we keep reacting only to the attacks, we will always be one step behind." Ethan breathed deeply, trying to order his thoughts. "Let's try something different. Let's send our own signals, small pulses that can confuse or at least test their reaction. We need to discover how they perceive our behavior." While Harris adjusted the transmitters, an internal alert indicated that someone had accessed the navigation center without permission. The crew turned, surprised and confused. "Who is messing with the navigation controls?" asked Rena, the voice loaded with tension. "This is not time for mistakes." Everyone looked at the engineer Jarek, who was tense, the eyes diverting. I just... he began, but the phrase died on his face. Ethan perceived his anxiety and a chill ran down his spine. The possibility of sabotage inside the very ship began to rise like a real nightmare. "We need to reinforce the internal security," said Rena. "We can't worry only about external threats. Each wrong decision can cost us dearly." Meanwhile, the alien signals continued, pulsing with a cadence that seemed almost intelligent. Ethan perceived that, beyond testing their abilities, the aliens seemed also to measure their emotions, analyzing the confidence and the tension inside the team. "They know we are divided," murmured Harris, "and they can use that against us." Fragments of metal still floated in the corridors, reminding everyone that each second was dangerous. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility crushing his chest. It wasn't only a battle against aliens, but also a fight to keep the own team united. "We need to establish priorities," said Rena, breathing deeply. "First, safety of the ship. Second, protection of the crew. Third, discover what they really want." While they discussed, a strange sound began to vibrate through the communication systems, a metallic echo that didn't correspond to any known sound. It was almost as if the ship itself were alive, reacting to the alien presence or maybe imitating patterns of the enemy fleet. "What is that?" asked Ethan, the heart accelerated. "It seems that they are communicating with us in a way that we don't even fully perceive." "We need to record everything and analyze each pattern," said Harris. "Each detail can be a clue." While the crew worked frantically, Ethan perceived that there was something deeper at play. They weren't only intelligent machines. There was an intention, a consciousness, something that surpassed any human technology, and that was terrifying. Rena breathed deeply, looking at the monitors. "We need to act as if each step were decisive, because probably it is." Fragments of alien light began to pulse again, this time with patterns almost rhythmic that reminded signals of life. Ethan perceived that they were facing something that went beyond any conventional war. They were confronted by an enemy that understood not only physics, but human psychology. "Prepare evasive maneuvers and reinforce the internal shields," ordered Rena. "We don't know what they can do." The corridor of the Aegis was plunged in twilight, illuminated only by the pulsating glow of the emergency systems. Metallic fragments still floated after the recent attacks, reminding each crew member that they were vulnerable and surrounded. Ethan walked slowly, each step resounding through the hull, attentive to any sign of movement out of the ordinary. The fear that someone inside the very ship could compromise the mission grew each minute. "Are all the internal systems monitored?" asked Rena, entering the corridor behind him. "We cannot allow any mistake to turn into disaster." "Yes, Captain," answered Harris, looking at the control panels. "But something tells me that it is not only mistake. There are signs of deliberate manipulation in the navigation records." Silence fell over the bridge like an invisible weight. Each crew member realized that the danger did not come only from the alien attacks. It could be inside the very ship, hidden among them. Jarek. "We need to talk with you," said Rena firm. "Each action of yours will be verified. We cannot have failures now." The engineer swallowed dryly, the eyes wide. I was only trying to correct a failure in the energy system," he said, the voice trembling. "I didn't want to." "That is not enough," said Ethan, approaching. "Each decision of yours affects the entire crew. We need to be sure that we can trust everyone." While they discussed, a new alien signal appeared on the monitors. This time, they were not only symbols, but a sequence of coded pulses, emitting a frequency that seemed to correspond to the heartbeats of the crew. The sensation was unsettling, almost as if the aliens could feel the fear, the anxiety, and the suspicion inside the Aegis. "They are studying us in a way that goes beyond physics," murmured Harris, furrowing the forehead. "It is as if they wanted to map our emotions." "That is impossible," said Ethan, still looking at the pulsating patterns. "But it is exactly what it seems," Rena breathed deeply. "We need to use this to our advantage. If they can read our emotional responses, we can deceive them, but only if we act with discipline and unity." In the middle of the tension, the impact alert sounded again. A fragment of alien energy crossed the external shield of the ship, throwing sparks in the corridors. Each crew member grabbed onto the supports, feeling the metallic vibration run through their bones. "Shields!" shouted Rena. "We cannot allow them to find an opening." While the crew reacted, Ethan noticed something strange in Jarek's data. A small deviation in the navigation codes had been corrected quickly, but in a way that could have caused a catastrophic failure if it had not been detected in time. "Rena." "He did not act alone," said Ethan, pointing to the records. "Someone else is manipulating the systems." Rena swallowed dryly, the weight of suspicion crushing her. "Then we have a traitor on board, and we do not know who." Fragments of alien light began to pulse with more intensity, almost as if they observed them and knew of each internal tension. Ethan felt a wave of dread and fascination at the same time. The aliens not only attacked physically, they manipulated the mind, creating doubts, fear, and suspicion. "We need to divide the teams," said Rena, with the voice firm. "One part monitoring external signals, another part ensuring internal security. Each action needs to be double: defense and observation." While they reorganized, the communication panel began to transmit a different pattern. It was as if the aliens were trying to communicate clearly, sending sequences that resembled fragmented images of ancient civilizations and unknown symbols. "They are not only enemies," said Harris, absorbing the signals. "There is something more, maybe a message." "A message or a threat," interrupted Ethan, tightening the fists. "We need to find out which before it is too late." Suddenly, the navigation system was manipulated again, this time at a critical level. The Aegis began to tilt slightly, deviating from the planned trajectory. Ethan ran to the control panel, trying to reverse the action before the shields overloaded. "Rena!" he shouted. "Someone here knows more than should." Rena grabbed the controls, the eyes fixed on the monitors. "If it is sabotage, we need to neutralize immediately. We cannot lose the ship because of blind trust." While they worked frantically, the alien signals changed again, emitting patterns that resembled whispers of a collective consciousness, as if they were sending warnings or direct provocations. "They are testing us at all levels," said Harris. "Strategy, psychology, even the morale of the crew." Ethan realized that they were facing something that would transcend any conventional battle. It was not only brute force or technology, it was a war of intelligence, manipulation, and perception. "We need to keep the focus," said Rena, breathing deeply. "But we also need to be ready for the unexpected. Each second can change everything." The Aegis floated in space like prey surrounded by fragments of alien light that pulsated with an almost hypnotic frequency. Each panel of the command bridge displayed patterns that defied all human logic, and the crew felt the weight of the unknown crawling like an invisible chill through the corridors. Ethan breathed deeply, trying to keep his mind clear, but each pulse, each symbol, and each variation of light seemed to infiltrate his thoughts, testing his patience and emotional control. "We need to analyze each pattern calmly," said Harris, the fingers dancing over the panel. "But each time we try to concentrate, they change. as if they were playing with us. "This is not just play," said Rena, crossing her arms, the eyes fixed on the screen. "They are testing us, challenging us to react. We need to be ahead of each movement." Metallic fragments still floated in the ship's corridors, reminding that each failure could be fatal. Ethan realized that the pressure did not come only from the external alien attack, but from the psychological labyrinth in which they were trapped. Each internal suspicion, each doubt about Jarek's loyalty or another crew member, fed the tension inside the Aegis. "Rena," began Ethan, hesitating. "What if they are manipulating not only the systems but also our perceptions?" "Then we need to double attention," replied the captain, firm. "We cannot trust only the sensors. We need to trust our minds and maintain discipline." Meanwhile, the communication system emitted a different signal, this time more structured. Fragments of images began to appear, almost like relics of ancient civilizations, symbols of alien cities and maps of unknown space routes. "They are showing us something," said Harris, furrowing the forehead. "I don't know if it is a threat, an invitation, or a lesson. A deadly riddle." "If it is," murmured Ethan, "we need to decipher quickly, or we may not survive to understand." In the main corridor, Jarek worked frantically on the energy systems. Ethan felt a pang of suspicion and caution. "It's true that you corrected the deviations, but we need total transparency," he said. "Each decision of yours affects everyone." Jarek nodded, visibly tense. "I know, but it is not only my responsibility. There is something in the ship that I cannot control completely." Suddenly, a pulse of energy crossed the ship, throwing sparks onto the supports. Each crew member grabbed on, feeling the impact reverberate through the hull. The sensors indicated that there was no direct attack this time. It was a test of reaction, perhaps even a psychological provocation. "They are trying to measure our fear," said Rena, observing the patterns of alien light. "Each breath, each hesitation, each movement, they capture everything." Fragments of alien images began to form a clearer sequence. It seemed a navigation route that crossed asteroid fields and unknown regions of space. Ethan realized it could be a trap, but also a clue about the aliens' real intention. "We need to send a probe," said Harris. Calculated risk, but necessary to understand what they want. While preparing the probe, the corridor shook again. Fragments of alien light formed a kind of pulsating sphere around the ship, temporarily blocking the sensors and interfering with communication systems. "They are controlling the space around us," murmured Ethan. "Each movement of ours is anticipated." "And each wrong decision can be fatal," said Rena, the voice grave. "We need to think 2 steps ahead." Harris launched the probe, which moved through space between the fragments of alien light. The screen showed patterns that changed as the probe advanced. Ethan realized that this was not only exploration, it was a coded conversation, and each change in the signals could be interpreted as warning or threat. "We are at the limit," said Harris, the eyes fixed on the screen. "Each action of theirs is unpredictable, but there are patterns. We need to discover which it is." Suddenly, a sequence of symbols formed something almost human. It seemed a representation of the crew itself. Observed from outside, each gesture, each expression detected. "They know more about us than we ourselves," said Ethan, feeling a chill run down the spine. "And it seems that this is just the beginning." As the probe returned, Ethan realized they were in a game of intelligence and perception, where each misstep could be fatal. "We need to maintain total focus," he said. "But we also need to be prepared for the unexpected." Rena breathed deeply. "The next decision may define not only our survival, but also the destiny of all humanity." The Aegis advanced cautiously through the turbulent space, each module of the ship vibrating under the tension of anticipation. Fragments of alien light pulsed in unpredictable patterns around it, creating an almost hypnotic field where every movement could be fatal. Ethan watched the command bridge with maximum attention. Every detail reflected on the screens was a possible risk, a threat, or a clue to understand the enemy. "All to your stations," ordered Rena, her voice firm but loaded with tension. "The first real battle begins now." Fragments of alien energy began moving toward the ship, forming coordinated attacks that defy any human prediction. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine. It was the first clear demonstration that the enemy was not only intelligent, but capable of complex strategies. shields at maximum, shouted Harris, his fingers flying across the controls. Each impact must be absorbed and recorded. We need to learn from every movement they make. While the crew reacted, an internal alert sounded. There was a failure in the propulsion systems, and Jarek seemed more nervous than ever. Ethan realized that any mistake could be fatal. The ship was surrounded, and trust among the crew was now as crucial as the systems themselves. "Jarek, explain now," said Rena, her voice firm. "We cannot waste time with excuses. I tried to adjust the systems to absorb the alien pulses," said Jarek, sweating. "But the interference is greater than we expected. Fragments of alien light formed a pattern that seemed to imitate the crew's movements, almost as if they were studying every human reaction." Ethan realized they were being evaluated on all levels: tactical, psychological, and emotional. "They don't just want to destroy us," said Harris, his voice tense. "They are testing our decisions, our cohesion, maybe even our internal weaknesses." Suddenly, an unknown ship emerged from the field of alien energy, sending clear communication signals. The symbols now formed more comprehensible patterns, as if it were an attempt at direct contact, different from the previous attacks. "They want to negotiate?" murmured Ethan, incredulous. "Or is it another trap?" "We cannot risk it without proof," said Rena. "But we also cannot ignore the opportunity. Each wrong decision here could cost everyone's life." While evaluating the situation, Harris began decoding the signals. Fragments of symbols suggested a distinct alien intelligence, perhaps even fragments of a collective consciousness, attempting to transmit intentions and strategies. "They are not uniform," said Harris. "There is a division among them. Some seem hostile, others curious." "Then there's a chance for alliance," murmured Ethan, still cautious. "But how can we trust those who almost destroyed us?" Fragments of light began to pulse in alternating patterns, almost as if responding to human decisions. Ethan realized they could manipulate the crew's perception, influence decisions, and exploit any emotional weakness. "We need to act with a dual strategy," said Rena. "Defensive and offensive, but keeping an opening for communication. We cannot lose the chance to understand or negotiate." The first coordinated attack began with maximum intensity, striking the side of the Aegis and testing every defense system. Fragments of energy cut through space, and each evasive maneuver was calculated to the millimeter. "Shields stable, but there are gaps," shouted Harris. "We need to reinforce immediately!" As they reacted, Ethan noticed a pattern in the attacks. Some were not random. They seemed designed to test each crew member, to discover how they would react under extreme pressure. "This is a test," said Ethan, staring at the screen. "And we need to pass it. Each wrong step could be fatal." During the battle, a fragment of alien signal approached the ship more closely, emitting images and patterns that suggested a rational intelligence seeking dialogue. Ethan realized they could gain vital information if they risked a controlled approach. "Rena, can we try contact?" he asked hesitantly. "But we need to be ready to flee or attack." "Do it," said the captain, determined. "But with maximum caution. Every second counts." The alien ship responded to human signals with clear light patterns, almost as if offering a real chance for communication. Ethan felt a mix of fascination and fear. They were about to make direct contact with a superior intelligence, but the risk of betrayal or attack remained latent. "Prepare for approach," said Rena. "Stay alert. And watch every internal signal. We cannot forget the traitor on our own ship." As the Aegis advanced, fragments of alien light formed a kind of energy corridor, guiding them toward the unknown ship. Each step was a psychological and strategic test. The crew needed to maintain unity, trust, and discipline while facing a battle that blended space and mind. The Aegis advanced slowly through the alien energy corridor, each fragment of light pulsing in almost hypnotic patterns. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility crushing his chest. Every decision was now critical. The traitor could still act, and the alien intelligence seemed capable of anticipating any human movement. "Prepare direct communication," said Rena, her voice firm. "We need to understand who we're dealing with before it's too late." Fragments of symbols began forming clearer images, alien faces that resembled humanoids, but with eyes reflecting immeasurable intelligence. Ethan swallowed hard. They aren't just machines, said Harris. There's consciousness, emotion, maybe something equivalent to our morality. As the crew tried to decipher the signals, a new internal alert sounded. The ship trembled slightly. The systems indicated internal interference. Ethan immediately realized that someone was sabotaging the Aegis, or at least trying to test the crew's reaction. Jarek, said Ethan, his voice firm. We need to know everything you've done since the last attack. Every adjustment, every altered code. The engineer took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the panels. I corrected the systems to absorb the alien pulses, White, he said. But I don't know how something is still interfering. His sentence died, full of tension. Then there's more than one saboteur, murmured Ethan, eyes wide. Someone among us wants more than just to test our limits. Meanwhile, the alien ship emitted coordinated approach signals, creating a kind of visual dialogue. Each pulse of light seemed to respond to human emotions, almost as if the aliens could sense fear, anxiety, and suspicion within the crew. They're testing not just our ship, but each of us, said Rena. Every decision, every reaction, every hesitation, it's all being evaluated. Fragments of alien light began organizing into patterns resembling maps of ancient constellations, but with unknown information. Harris realized this could be an opportunity to discover weaknesses or intentions of the alien fleet. If we can decipher this, we might negotiate or even manipulate their actions, said Harris. But we need to act quickly or time will slip away. As they watched, a pulse of energy passed through the ship, throwing sparks across the corridors. Each crew member grabbed the supports, feeling the impact reverberate through the hull. It was a clear warning. Any alliance, if it existed, would not yet be guaranteed. We need to divide tasks again, said Rena. One team analyzes external signals, the other ensures internal security. Each action must be dual, defense and observation. While reorganizing the team, Ethan noticed something in the alien symbols that caught his attention. There was a reference to the Aegis crew itself, as if the alien intelligence knew their skills, fears, and even weaknesses. They know more about us than we do, said Ethan, his voice low, almost a whisper. And it seems this is just the beginning. Jarek, still tense, looked at Ethan. If they know so much, maybe we can use it. We could show strength and peaceful intent at the same time. It's risky, said Rena, but it might be the only chance to understand what they really want. As the crew prepared, a new alien signal approached, this time with patterns resembling coded instructions, as if inviting the Aegis to follow a safe path through the energy field. This could be a trap, said Harris, frowning. Or perhaps a safe route. We need to decide quickly. Ethan felt his heart race. Every second of hesitation could cost lives. We'll take the risk, he said firmly. But with extreme caution and maximum attention to the signals, fragments of alien energy formed a kind of pulsating corridor, guiding the Aegis. The ship advanced slowly, each vibration reflecting the weight of responsibility and tension. If we reach the end of this corridor, we'll have more than information, said Rena. We'll have the chance to understand our enemies, and perhaps choose true allies or enemies. The Aegis advanced through the pulsating corridor of alien energy, each fragment of light forming almost hypnotic patterns. Ethan felt the pressure crushing his chest. Every decision was now critical, and the crew was on maximum alert. The traitor could still act, and the alien intelligence seemed capable of anticipating every move. Maintain full focus, said Rena, eyes fixed on the monitors. Every second here could define our fate. Fragments of symbols began forming surprisingly clear images, not just aliens, but scenes of distant worlds, ancient civilizations, and maps of unknown star systems. Harris realized that this was more than communication. It was an attempt to convey knowledge. They want us to see, said Harris, his voice filled with fascination. But perhaps they are also testing us, checking if we are worthy of understanding. Meanwhile, the internal alert sounded again. Small energy deviations indicated interference within the ship. Ethan realized that any distraction could be fatal. Jarek, we need to know if any systems are still vulnerable, said Ethan. We can't risk failure now. I've checked everything, replied Jarek, tense. But I feel that something beyond our understanding is affecting the systems. As they tried to process the information, the alien ship emitted a stronger pulse. Fragments of light created patterns that seemed to respond to the crew's emotions, almost as if the aliens could measure confidence, fear, and courage. "They're reading our reactions," murmured Ethan. "Every wrong step, every hesitation, every doubt, they notice." Suddenly, a segment of the energy corridor lit up intensely, revealing a massive alien ship floating in space with an almost living presence. Rena took a deep breath. This is the opportunity for direct contact. But every movement must be calculated. Fragments of light began forming patterns reminiscent of welcoming gestures, but at the same time emitted a sense of alert. Any wrong action could mean disaster. "We are facing something greater than we imagined," said Harris, fascinated. Intelligence, emotion, and strategy combined in a way we've never seen before. Ethan felt his heart race. If they are capable of dialogue, we can learn, but if there's hostility, we could lose everything. As the crew prepared to send approach signals, one last internal interference shook the ship. Something or someone inside the Aegis still seemed to be trying to manipulate the systems one last time. "Rena," said Ethan, his face tense. "There's still someone sabotaging..." "Or something more?" "It doesn't matter," replied the captain, her voice firm. "Now the focus is on what lies ahead. Every decision will define us." The alien energy corridor pulsed, and the ship slowly advanced toward the massive alien vessel. Every second was charged with tension, expectation, and fear. Ethan realized that the future of the crew, the ship, and perhaps all of humanity depended on the next step. As they watched, Harris noticed a pattern in the light pulses. It seemed like a choice, as if the alien intelligence were offering a safe path, but demanding the crew's total trust. "It's risky," said Harris, "but it may be the only chance to uncover the truth." Ethan looked at Rena. "Let's go, but everyone must be ready for anything." Fragments of light pulsed again, as if acknowledging the decision. The Aegis moved forward, crossing the corridor, surrounded by danger, mystery, and infinite possibilities. "Prepare for anything," said Rena. "We are entering the unknown, and every choice here could change our destiny. Time holds many echoes, and this was only the first. The war isn't over yet. The answers are still out there, among the stars. Subscribe to Echoes of the Last Era to discover what comes next, because the next transmission has already begun. Leave a like, share, and until the next echo."